Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I'm going to share my review of Dreams and Machines, the starter set from Modiphius Entertainment. This is written by Chris Birch, Carrie Harris, Matt Zodiac, Samantha Webb, Daniel Lade, and Bryce Johnson. This box set should be arriving in stores soon. It's going to carry an MSRP of $34.99. And if you do order from Modiphius Entertainment, you will receive the PDF absolutely free. But if you want to just get the PDF, you can do so right now over at DriveThruRPG for $15. All of that said, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the starter set for Dreams and Machines. Few things I want to mention before we jump on in. First of all, the fine folks over at Modiphius Entertainment were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's important that you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page in the 3 booklets that are contained in the starter set. We're not going to look at every card in the various decks either, but I do want to give you a good feel for what's in this starter set and share my thoughts about it as well. Lastly, there are 2 adventures that are contained in this starter set. If you are a player hoping that your game master is going to pick up Dreams and Machines, at least this starter set, I would probably recommend tune out now, because as much as I'm going to stay away from spoilers as far as these 2 adventures go, I'm going to be flipping through the books. You are going to see some things. I'm going to share some of the various different NPC and creature cards and things like that. So if you want to make sure that none of the surprises in these 2 adventures are spoiled, yeah, I'd say tune out now. But having said that, you might want to let your game master know about this video so they can approach Dreams and Machines, the starter set here, and make an informed buying decision. All right, so first thing I want to mention is the box itself is really sturdy. It's actually one of the nicest starter set boxes I have seen. This will hold up really well. Most of the time, they're pretty flimsy. Not this one. So we have 3 booklets. I'm going to save these for last. We're going to take a look at these last because I'm going to dive in. I'm going to talk about the mechanics as well as the setting for Dreams and Machines. I'm going to put that off to the side. First, I'm going to talk about all the goodies that you can find in this box. First off, we get a bunch of envelopes. And you might be thinking, that's weird. Why would he have that? Well, when you're creating a character for Dreams and Machines, you are actually going to be using cards. So the various cards you have together are going to pretty much make up your character, and then you're going to have some tokens in that. So all of that can go right into this envelope when you're not playing, and then next time you get together to play, Game Master just takes them out, hands them out to everybody. I thought that was a nice touch. I thought that was kind of cool. We also have some punch boards with various different tokens, as well as creatures and NPCs. Dual-sided, nice and thick. So we've got that. We've got some handouts for the adventure. The main adventure, I should say, not the introductory tutorial adventure. I'm not going to show you all of these, but really, really nice production quality on these. I thought this was really nicely done. Helps to immerse your players. I have to say that Dreams and Machines, at least this starter set, is really tailored for people who have absolutely no experience with role-playing games. It does use the 2D20 system, which powers many of Modiphius Entertainment's role-playing games, but it's also a very lightweight edition of that. We also get a map, or a board, I guess we could consider it, for the main adventure. You might be sitting there thinking, wow, that's kind of boring looking. Well, we have location cards that'll actually go on this, so it'll be a little more visually appealing than just this. So we've got that. We've got all these different decks of cards we're going to take a peek at, but first, we also get 5 20-sided dice. And these are custom 20-sided dice because the one has the little symbol for Dreams and Machines. Now, the 2d20 system is a roll low system. So that's why the 1 has the special symbol, not the 20. In this game, 20 is bad. No. You don't want 20s. So I'll talk about the mechanics of Dreams and Machines in just a few moments as we take a peek through the booklets. But I just wanted to show off the dice. They're nice, chunky. I kind of dig the fuchsia color because there's kind of a teal and fuchsia color motif that's going on with Dreams and Machines. I will point out, I wish that the ink for the numbering was not gray. I wish it was a little lighter color. It would pop a little more and be a little easier to make out. Although I can read these dice, 15, 19, 18, 14, and 1. But still, I think they would have popped a little more with a lighter color. So we have all these decks of cards. Once again, as I mentioned, we're not going to look through all of these. But we have player reference cards. We've got a Game Master reference card. I thought that was cool. I really like that. We've got the various different cards that you're going to use when you build your character. Talk about that in a bit. We have various different equipment where we have images and then there's stat blocks. We have origins and archetypes, and you'll have one of each. That's how you're going to build your character. So we've got various different origins. Choosing an origin is going to give you a couple of options as far as your archetype. So then you're going to choose your archetype. You're also going to have a talent. And that's going to be based on your archetype. And then your character will have a temperament. And that will determine, it gives kind of a bit of role-playing feel or angle, I guess, for your character. And there's also a mechanic in Dreams and Machines called exhaustion. And depending on what your temperament is, it's going to determine what your negative condition will be from being exhausted. We have a bunch of cards for the different machines. So we have all the different stat blocks here. And these are going to be encountered in the adventure, the main adventure. So we've got that. And then we've got NPC cards. Again, there's our stat block. We have various different creatures and enemies. Once again, all the information that we need. And then I thought this was very cool. We've got location cards. As I had already mentioned with the map there, we have these various different locations. So we don't only have locations for that map. We've got various different scenes that are taking place in the adventure that we have cards for. And of course, we have relevant information for the Game Master on the back. In fact, all of the cards outside of the ones that are used to create the characters are all Game Master facing. So we've got all of these decks of cards. And I really, really dig this. I think as far as the immersion for your players, it is really going to go a long way. But I also have a little bit of an issue with this, and I'll talk about that a little later on. So first of all, we've got tutorial booklet, which is how you're going to learn how to play the game. Now, there is a tutorial adventure in here as well. The setting for Dreams and Machines is, gotta say, feels quite a lot like Horizon Zero Dawn. Although, I'll be honest, I have not played either of the games, but I do know a bit of the backstory to it. Kind of has a little bit of that feel. Now, I'm not saying that it's exactly that, but I have the impression that at one point, Dreams and Machines was being designed as a Horizon Zero Dawn role-playing game. And for whatever reason, Modiphius Entertainment was not able to license that IP. So, of course, they've changed up some things so they don't have lawyers banging on their doors. So the backstory is that this was a colony of Earth. So it doesn't take place on Earth, but the humans are from Earth. Their origins, they originate from the planet Earth. And a rogue AI created various different mechs. And there was a huge war between the machines and humanity, a la the Terminator. And eventually, humanity needed to destroy its civilization in order to survive. So now this is kind of a world which also has a little bit of a Numenera feel to it, where we have all this ancient technology. Most of the people who live in this world do not have an idea how to use it. So we have kind of an advanced technology alongside almost Stone Age primitive technology as well. So very interesting as far as the backstory. We don't get a ton of information about the game world, and that I'm sure we're going to find out way, way more about the world of Dreams and Machines with the 2 core books that are on the horizon. But you'll learn enough about it where, especially as a game master, you'll be able to run this. Should also point out that this is the sort of game setting where your starting player characters tend to come from a pretty kind of closed community. So they don't know much about the outside world. And that's reflected with the players as well. So that makes it far easier to just kind of float little tidbits of information out there as opposed to just providing a huge info dump into their laps. So creating the character, you're going to choose an origin. So let's go with kind of a traditional combat focused character, and that would be the spear. And it's going to give us our attributes. So we're not rolling dice. There's no point buy or anything like that as far as our attributes. We only have 4 attributes. Got might, quickness, insight, and resolve. We also have spirit, and we also have tech level. Spirit and tech level, I don't really consider attributes. They are scores, but nothing's like really built around them as far as being able to roll for different tests. I'll get to that in just a bit. So here we've got might 10, quickness 9, insight 8, resolve 8, tech level 2. So they're not real comfortable with very high tech levels. Spirit 5, talk about spirit in just a bit, and supply points 1. Talk about that in just a bit. So once you've got your origin, now you're going to select your archetype. So sticking with kind of a traditional fighter sort of character, we're going to go with the Guardian. So now we're going to talk about our skills, and there aren't a ton of skills, and the skills are very abstract. So combat is fight. Doesn't matter if you're talking about melee combat, range combat, it's still fight. Now, each of these is built upon an attribute. So what you're looking at is you're actually adding 2 numbers together to get a total. So if your game master says, hey, you know what? I need you to test your might and you need 2 successes. You already know that, okay, you got a might of 10. You roll 2 20-sided dice. Normally, you can get more to add into your pool. Talk about that in a bit. But you automatically know what you got to do. Now, if you were in like a combat situation, then you're going to add your skills. So here we have fight. Fight 4, might 10. So if it's melee combat, 14. Quickness is 9. That also covers range combat. So now we're looking at a 13 for range combat. We also have equipment. So we have those equipment cards. Talk about that in just a moment. But here you can see that you're going to actually take these skills here, add them to your attributes. That is going to tell you what your target number is going to be. The Game Master is going to tell you how many successes you might need. A lot of times you only need one. But if it's something really difficult, you might be looking at 2, 3, maybe even more than that. So we've got that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a talent. So based on your archetype, you're going to have a variety of talents that you can choose from. So once again, sticking with that kind of combat-focused fighter, defensive posture. So that's going to tell me that when an enemy makes a successful attack against you or an ally near you, you may add 1 to the threat to reduce the damage rating of the attack's injury by 2 to a minimum of 1. Talk about threat and injury and that in just a sec. But that would be my talent. So they are essentially a guardian, right? They're a defensive character. Then you're going to choose a temperament. It's a personality trait to help with your role playing. So this is fixed. So once you've decided on something, nothing changes your mind. And then it gives a little bit of some additional game stats in here. But one of the most important things here is your exhaustion. So exhaustion is a mechanic that when you run out of spirit points, you are exhausted. And then you will have this negative condition. So the negative condition for fixed is despairing. And whenever you're exhausted, depending on your temperament, there is going to be one attribute check you will automatically fail. And all your other tests, I said check, but they're tests, same thing. All your other tests are going to be at a -1, 2 successes. So that is very important to keep in mind. Being exhausted is pretty bad, but it is not hugely difficult to get rid of that, either by resting or by being assisted by your fellow adventurers, things like that. So we have the supply points. Rather than sitting there and tracking every copper coin and silver nugget that your player characters might be carrying, supply points are used to create gear on the fly. So if you were in a situation where your character, they're facing a challenge, you've got supply points, you could say, oh, well, my character has this piece of equipment to address that. It's kind of a one-shot item. And you would spend supply points in order to have that. So you're not sitting here tracking tons and tons of gear and equipment and worrying about if they're encumbered or not or anything along those lines. Once again, as far as the rule system goes, this is pretty rules light. Although we're going to talk about mechanics in just a few moments, there are a couple of things that I think are strangely present for a game that seems to be aimed at newcomers to the hobby and younger gamers in general. And the reason why I say younger gamers in general is we're going to see little notes throughout both the tutorial book and the main adventure book, like with little doodles and just the way it's presented. And I get it, it's supposed to be, oh, well, they're notes in a notebook. Yeah, okay. But still, they kind of come across as being like aimed at younger gamers. And when I say younger gamers, I'm not talking about 8-year-olds. I'm talking about, 12 to 17, something like that. Or people who are absolutely brand new to the hobby as well. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it feels like this isn't aimed at me as a target audience. So we have some other mechanics here. We have spirit, which your player characters are going to start off with a pool of spirit points. with those spirit points, they can add additional dice to their pool. So let's say it's something that needs 2 successes. You've got some spirit points. All right, I'm going to spend 2 spirit points to get 2 more dice. So we've got that. We have the ability to spend a spirit point to reroll dice. So we've got that. And one of the biggest things with spirit is to be able to shake off injuries, to avoid injuries. Talk about that in just a couple of moments. So we have other kind of player and game master currency that we can use. So we have the spirit points. Now, the opposite of the spirit points is threat, and that is for the game master. Game master uses it just like spirits. They can add extra dice to their NPCs' die pools. They can also sit there and re-roll 20-sided dice. They can also decide to avoid injury for monsters and NPCs. There is a third currency, which is called momentum. And players have momentum. They gain momentum. It's a pool that the entire group will get to use. And every time a player rolls dice and they have extra successes. So as I pointed out, let's say we had the 4 dice and it needed 2 successes. Well, let's say we rolled 4 successes. Holy cow. Well, those extra 2 successes become momentum. Momentum can be spent for various different things as well, one of which is going to be changing truths. I'll save that for last because that is a mechanic that I feel is strangely present for a game that's kind of aimed at people without a lot of experience with role-playing games. So as far as combat goes, as I mentioned, we have might, we have fight, we have quickness, we have fight. So what you're going to do is you're just going to roll your dice. And once again, you might have to have more than 1 success in order to damage your opponent. And as an example here, we've got our security pulsar. It's a laser pistol, basically. And it does damage burn 2 or stun 2. So we get to choose what kind of damage, if there is a choice to be made. And we also have some qualities here, which is kind of almost like keywords about that piece of equipment. So as an example here, we've got burn 2, stun 2. We do not have hit points in Dreams and Machines. We essentially have injured, not injured. That's it. But what happens is if you're injured in your combat, then you're defeated. You're out of action for that combat. That's one of the reasons why you would be spending spirit to avoid injuries, because if you take an injury, you're defeated. Now, there are other things that can take place where you don't take an injury, but you're still defeated. I'll talk about that in a sec. But that's what we're looking for. So here we would have burn 2, and depending on if the creature or NPC that the GM was running has any kind of armor or anything like that, they would need to spend 2 threat if there was no armor in order to avoid that injury, to keep that NPC or creature in the fight. So have to point out, a lot of these mechanics are kind of geared towards the player to give advantage to the player. So let's say the player character's taking damage. Well, we have light armor for our guardian, which has protection 2. So what happens here is you deduct the protection from the damage level of the attack. And what's left is how many points of spirit must be spent to avoid that injury. Minimum of 1. So if it was damage 2 and this has protection 2, okay, well, that's 0, but you still have a minimum of 1. So you would need to spend that point of spirit in order to avoid being defeated and injured. Now, let's say you don't have any spirit left. You're out of spirit. You're exhausted. What you could do is you could spend your armor. Essentially, you're going to discard this piece of equipment. It's broken in order to avoid the injury, but you're still defeated. And the injury could be you're knocked unconscious, or you've got your brain scrambled a bit, you're dazed, or you're dead. So there's a lot of leeway with the injury. I will say, though, that even though this is supposed to be a really dangerous and deadly world, it's mentioned in the rules that you really shouldn't kill the player characters off. I disagree with that because anytime you have a role-playing game where there's really no risk that your player characters are going to buy the farm or take a dirt nap, what have you, as long as you're not playing kids, right? You know, kids on bikes sort of games. No, you don't want to. You don't want to off the kids in a game like that. But anything else, yes, there should be some risk of player character death. Otherwise, you start to lose the crowd after a while. Just my opinion. So then the last mechanic I want to talk about is truth. As we take a peek through the rules reference, this is a really short book. And oddly enough, this is in alphabetical order, except for supply points. It's like, what? So here you see, okay, C, D, S, huh? G. It's like, oops. So this is our rules reference, and it's not really a rule book. It's more just, oh, okay, so I'm kind of curious about truths. Well, let's go to T. Why, there they are. So what truths are they are facts about a scene. Dreams and Machines is a scene-based role-playing game, as are most Modiphius Entertainment role-playing games. So that does mean these tend to be on rails. They are rather linear. So if you have a problem with that, just be informed. I know a lot of people out there are like, railroad, I don't care. As long as it's cool scenery to look at and the destination's cool, I'll take a railroad. That's okay. But I am just pointing out that this is scene-based. There's not a lot of sandboxy stuff going on. So these truths are facts about a scene, a situation, but they can be changed. So the players can spend momentum points to change a truth about a scene. I got to be honest. I mean, this is a mechanic that I would expect in a role-playing game that it's aimed at people who have far more experience in role-playing games than what this seems to be aimed towards. Because there's so many things that can be truths in a scene. It could be the situation itself. It could be the disposition of an NPC or creature, monster, what have you. Could be equipment that I've got. Could be all these different things. So that's why I said it's a little strange that that's a mechanic that's in this. Once again, as I said before, this just has a vibe to me that it's aimed at younger players. Uh-oh, this looks quite scary. Okay. So that is the rules reference. Then we've got the adventure booklet. And this is a pretty solid adventure. Once again, I will point out this is not fleshed out very much as far as this game world, which works okay with this starter set because this adventure essentially takes the player characters to this new town that they're not familiar with. And there's also that whole aspect of that ancient technology that they're always looking to find. They can always use this ancient tech, so they're going to set out to recover some. Like I said, I'm going to stay pretty spoiler free here. I do like the fact that it's very obvious what the read aloud is. I thought that was a nice touch, because there are times where you'll have a role playing game adventure where it's not always real clear just at first glance what is the read aloud and what is the GM's eyes only information. But here you can see absolutely no issue with that at all. I appreciate the fact that this is a fairly detailed adventure. This is not something that the players are going to wrap up in a 3 or 4 hour session. This should take a few sessions to complete. And once again, it does a nice job of allowing the players and the player characters to dip their toes into the world of dreams and machines. But they're not going to come away knowing a ton about this game world, which, of course, is obviously coming in the 2 hardcover books that Modiphius Entertainment, I believe, is currently taking pre-orders for. All right, so that is a look at Dreams and Machines, discussing it a bit. Let's swing on over to the other camera, because I'm going to share some final thoughts as well as my review score. I like Dreams and Machines. I do give Dreams and Machines, the starter set here, a recommendation. I will also point out it's obviously not directed towards me. I am not the target audience for Dreams and Machines. It is by far the lightest application of the 2D20 system I have seen yet from Modiphius Entertainment. It makes Star Trek Adventures look really crunchy. It really, really does. I know there are people out there who just are not fans of the 2D20 system. I'd say you could give this a try, because I know some people are taken back by just the amount of crunch that is found in, say, Achtung Cthulhu 2D20. Completely understand that. It's a far different application of 2D20 with Dreams and Machines. Artwork throughout, really, really well done. Production quality, top notch. Adventures are solid, if they're not spectacular, but they're good, they're interesting. They will keep your group's interest level, I can pretty much guarantee, especially if they're into game worlds like Horizon Zero Dawn. I've mentioned that a few times, haven't I? Also, do want to point out that as cool as all the cards and extra goodies, the handouts and all that happen to be, I'm curious if Modiphius Entertainment will use that approach with adventures in the future for Dreams and Machines when the full game comes out. And the reason why I mention that is because the excellent Agents of Dune, which is for Dune Adventures in the Imperium, another role-playing game from Modiphius Entertainment, which is excellent. If you are a fan of Dune, you owe it to yourself to give that a peek. So the box set Agents of Dune is awesome. And it's essentially replacing the main characters, the house that's the center of Dune, with the player character's house. So really, really well done. And it's got all these extras. It's got the equipment cards. It's got the NPC cards. It's got a mini game about mining the spice on Arrakis. And then the second part of the adventure comes out, which I have a review coming very shortly of, and it is Masters of Dune, and it's a book. There are no NPC cards. There are new NPCs. There are no NPC cards. You've got new equipment, new gear. Don't have cards for that. So it's kind of strange that that campaign first releases box sets, which reality could be used as a starter set. And then the follow-up to the campaign. This is not a different standalone adventure. This is part of the campaign. Comes out as a book. So you've spoiled the gamers with the cool cards and everything else in the Agents of Dune. Now it's like, well, now we're just going to give you a traditional game book. It's a little bit of a problem, I think. just my opinion, and I am curious if that will be the approach here with Dreams and Machines, which, as far as I understand, Modiphius Entertainment is very committed to because it is an original IP. All in all, like I said, this is not aimed at me. This is aimed at people who don't have a lot of experience with role-playing games, maybe none. And I get the vibe that it's aimed at younger gamers than I, far younger gamers than I. But I still like Dreams and Machines. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Dreams and Machines starter set a 7 out of 10. Now, your mileage may vary. I'm just giving it a 7 out of 10 for myself. All right, that is it for this time out. If you liked the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, here's hoping you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.